Hey everybody, how's it going? Welcome to the video challenge. My name is Wade Acuff, and we're going to have two challenges this month. I'll be hosting both of them, but they're going to be pretty chill, pretty laid back. Well, chill maybe is the pun there. But we're going to work on making a snow scene today. Let's show you what that looks like real quick. We're going to work on something that looks like this. Let's see, make sure this is all working. So you're going to have a little snow scene with some particles. Don't worry. It's fine. We're going to be fine. The particles, it's pretty easy. It's also a lot of fun to play with. But we have to make some snowflakes first. And I do know, or at least I've heard, that there might be issues with the Dropbox links to the starter file. Maybe at a later date, maybe after the stream, they'll get that sorted out and you'll have access to those starter files. We shall see, but I will pop into Illustrator real quick to show you how to make a snowflake. I'm sure you've seen it before, but I'm also going to say hi to chat. What's up, chat? How's it going? I see Umacorn, Ray, Adara. How's it going? Okay, let's jump over into Illustrator real quick, just so we can kick this off. Making some snowflakes. I'm going to make sure that I'm on my pen tool, pressing P. And I'm just going to start. I would say if you want to make like a crystalline type of snowflake, go look up some reference. I already have something in mind, but I'm just going to do this real quick because this has been done multiple times. I know on Adobe Live, everybody has their own flavor. I think Emily Pulling did one last time she was in the studio. So I think that was the case with that. And I'm going to do one today just to show you how I would do it, or an option, I should say. Ooh, let me get this out of the way here. Didn't mean to add a path. I'm just going to gray. Well, we'll do it this way. It's fine. Trying not to have a curve in it. But here we go. Okay, so this is going to be a stem of the snowflake, and you can probably tell where this is going to go already, as we're going to use a radial repeat for this. I'm going to grab both of these and hold down Alt and drag this over, and then reflecting, double click OK. I'm going to come in here real close now. I'm going to press Y so we can, well, if it will work, press Y so we can get, hello, Control Y, that's why it's not working. Control Y so I can get a wireframe. And I have issues sometimes lining this stuff up because I want it to be like completely symmetrical, or at least on a point. If you go over into View and turn on Snap to Point, it will help you out. Let's see if we can get this going. I'm going to zoom in here a little bit, grab this, see if I can snap to point. Looks pretty good. Move on down, do the same thing. See, this one's not even snap to point, so let's see if we can combine them. There we go. All right. So then Control Y to get back out of that. Now we've got a little stem going on. But before we move on to anything, I want to let you guys know, and you probably do, some of you probably do, sometimes when we scale our paths and their outlines involved, they won't scale with it. Right now they are, because I've set it to on. To check that on. If you go into properties and you go into down here at the bottom, scale strokes and effects, it will scale them uniformly as you scale. And you can also access it here. You can turn it on there, which is also in the properties. You can also do it in your transform window. There's a lot of places to get to that. But if you don't turn that on and we start to scale this down, we might get a little chunky, a little chunkier than we want to be. Or you might like that. So just keep that in mind. It's an option. I'm going to leave it on for now. And with that selected, you can group this if you want. You don't have to. But if you grab all of those and then we go into Object, Repeat, Radial, it will go ahead and make a, basically it's all set up for us. You have a lot of options here. You can remove as many of these as you want, not necessary for our snowflake, So I'm going to leave that where it is. You can also add more points, instances as it's called, with this little toggle or slider. And you can also scale where this, how big you want this to be, how much you want to grow out that center of your repeat. Now, the only thing I don't like, it gives you a degree, but I can't lock it in. If you guys know how to lock that in so that holding down shift doesn't do it. So I'm just going to kind of eyeball it here because I want to stretch this out just a little bit. We'll get it close. And then you can come in here and start adding detail. You can make a whole other shape, and then of course go back to edit, object, repeat, radial, and it's going to make its own little radial path, but you might want to line those up by just grabbing them and trying to center that if you want, and then line it up visually if you can, or there's another option. You can always go into the original instance, and then you can start adding things if you want, and it will start to already appear in the repeat you already started. I'm just going to add a little curve here. I don't know what it's going to look like. That's fine. I'm not looking to do anything crazy. We might want to add something up top though, like a little spot up here, and then align that if you'd like. Bam. So then anyway, that is one way to make a snowflake. Feel free to knock yourselves out, figure out how you want your snowflakes to look. And we're going to hop back over into After Effects. And the file I provided does have 4 options for snowflakes. These are the ones I made. I made them just like we did in Illustrator just now. But we're going to start with a new, fresh composition. Add a new comp. I'm going to make this just standard HD 1920, 1080. And then we're going to start with a blank layer. I'm going to change this to like a grayscale, something that I'll know is not a background. And let's go ahead and just find that particle world. I think it's CC particle world that we're going to use, and I'm just going to double click. And this thing has been in After Effects forever. It's been here a long time. Let's see what we get. All right, so it's doing a little simulation here. I mean, it looks like some lava, maybe some fireworks or something. I don't know, but that's kind of okay. The first thing I'm going to do, though, just so we know we're messing with, what we're playing around with, I want to reference one of the layers to be our particle. So if I roll down this menu and go right into texture, that's what we're going to work with. And then you can only assign this through one of the textures. We have a square, a disk, and a faded disk. I'm going to go with the textured disk, and nothing's going to show up because there's no source, but we have a source. I'm going to choose, I like the third flake here. I'm going to Control C that, Control V, and I'm just going to press Control Home so that it goes to the middle. You don't have to do that, but I want to make sure that it's centered just for my own sanity. I don't know why, but we're going to source that layer, flake, and then lo and behold, if I scale these up, I'm going to turn this off, and then we come in here to the birth size. These are snowflakes. I'm going to change this to half. I may have to reduce that, but first thing I'm going to do, I'm going to change the birth size. Now there are tons of of options. Do not be overwhelmed. We only need to use a handful of these. Let me back out a little bit so we can see what we're working with. This is ours. Going to kind of chug through this a little bit, but these are particles, and they're coming out of what's called a producer. So they're just kind of flying all over the place using the physics and the animation set to explosive. We're going to change that in a minute, but let's start working on our layout, our colors and our layout. I'm going to do the color first. I'm going to just change this to white. And there is a birth color and a death color, which just means as over time it changes to that last color you pick. Actually, I want to take this down to about 3 size-wise. Okay, now let's deal with this producer. We don't want it unless you want your scene to do this. It looks like it's coming out of a fountain. We want this falling down. Now you could do these a couple of ways. The easiest way, I think, is to come in here to the producer and adjust it. First, I also want to let you know this is acting as it's 3D, so you can go up and down. You have a Z position, so it will take it back in the distance if you need to. We're mainly not going to deal with any of that, but it does have a radius, and I'm going to stretch our X radius out so it covers the screen. And then I'm just going to move to the position off screen above. So we get something that looks like this. So we're almost, I mean, we're like 10 minutes in. We've made a snowflake and we kind of already have a scene. Now this is complete chaos at the moment. So now, and this is a lot when dealing with particle system, it is about reining in the chaos and to start to shape and mold this how you want it to look. And that's what we're going to start with now. So we've got our textured disk. We have placed our producer at the top. Now we can start adjusting our birth rate. And you'll see there's a slider up here. I want to take it down. I don't want so many snowflakes. I want to put this at like 0.1. Let's see if that's too little. Okay, that's not bad. That's not bad. But you can also see they're kind of dying out in places. I don't want them to, I want them to stay with us a little bit longer. So longevity, I'm going to move all the way up to 4. And then we'll do a little render of that. And now they're not dropping off so fast. We can make our birth rate a little bit more. Let's go 0.4-ish. Just so we see a few more snowflakes as we're going. And now it's basically just hopping around to taste. I do want to make my max opacity 100%. You do have an opacity map. We're not going to deal with any of that. That just means in this curve, it's fading to full opacity, and then as it's dying off, it fades to nothing. You can provide your own map for that. I'm not going to mess with that. But let's get into the physics of this. So we have two main things I want to make sure to get across is the gravity and the resistance. So right now the gravity is what's forcing it down after it comes out of the producer. If you want to reduce that, then you make that number smaller. I'm going to go 0.1. See what that looks like. So we're already getting a little bit slower. Let me check with chat real quick. Starter files, empty duty, yeah, Dropbox issues, yeah, for sure. Let's see. Okay. But yeah, we've just made everything a little bit slower. But I also want to add a little bit of resistance, and I'm just going to move this to 1 and see what we get. And this might be too slow. That's not bad. That's not bad. I'm going to reduce this to 1/3 just so we can see, render a little bit faster. But the other thing you want to address is the animation here. Drives the way this looks. We have options here. Twirl seems to be the best for this because you get a little bit of floaty flurry action. And now this is where I would probably reduce the birth rate a little bit because they're all kind of moving together. But it is starting to look a little bit nicer. Couple of things to address on the particle side of things. Size variation. If you move this up, you'll see some of them get larger, and some of them, if you move the percentage up, some get larger, some get smaller. I want this at about 60-ish, somewhere in there. And then I am going to change that birth rate down to about 0.2. Take a look at that. That's a little bit better. You can also address the rotation of these in an attribute called rotation speed. And I'm going to move that to about 360. These are all like, oh, what? Not see, this is way too fast. I've put 3,660. But let's see what it looks like. Yeah, they're like throwing stars at that speed. We don't want that. Okay. So now we have a little bit of more spinning and that sort of thing. Okay, so we're going to say we're getting close to the look we want. Well, part of the problem, I think, one, there may be still too many, and there's no variation. So let's work on some variation there. Too many is an easy problem. We'll take our birth rate and make that 0.05. Maybe too few. Okay, not bad, not bad. And then I'm just going to copy this. Actually, let me rename this real quick to Snow 1. And then I'm going to copy it, Control D. And then in the second iteration, I'm going to bring over another flake. Let's grab flake 2, Control C, bring that to our comp, Control V, Control Home to bring it to the center just for sanity's sake. And then in Snow 2, I'm going to go back to my particle, back to my texture, and now reference flake 2. And you'll notice they're right on top of each other. I'll turn the first one off. We don't really want that. There's a couple of things we can do. We can go to the producer and, I don't know, move it over a little bit. That would be fine, but it's not going to change a whole lot. I would go and, let's see, let's go into the physics of it, and let's say the gravity is 0.2, maybe it's a little bit faster. And then there's a attribute called extra, and it kind of just multiplies everything slightly, and it'll change a little bit of where these go. So I'm going to move this slider just a little bit. Let's see what we get. Okay, so not bad. There's some variation now. We have a couple of different snowflakes happening here. All right, liking that. Let's do one more series of snow. I'm going to copy the first one again. We got Snow 3. I'm going to bring it to the back. And with this one, now you could move this. I'm going to add this to the background. You could move this back in space if you wanted to. I'm going to go the route where we change the particle size to, like, I don't know, 1. Is that too small? We'll find out if it's too small in a moment. Oh, 1 and 1. Oops. That was not what I was doing. 1. And I am going to up the birth rate to 0.1. And now we should have little snowflakes in the background. And they may be too small. Yeah, they may be too small. Let's go 2, 2, and 2. So like I was saying earlier, you can just adjust this to taste. And, you know, you can have a lot of fun with it and figure out all this stuff as you go along. So we have a few minutes left. Let's try to make this into something. Let's try to take this somewhere that could actually be a product or a post or something along those lines. I'm going to add a background real quick with dark red somewhere in there. Click OK. Pull this to the bottom. Not red enough, actually. That's okay. We'll work with it. Let's see what we got. Okay, we got some snow coming in. Let's add some type. And man, we've been wearing this out. I think I saw Jack using this earlier, but that's okay. We've got it. I'm going to use it. Control H, select it. Oh, it is in the middle. I'm going to bring it down just a little bit. So, you know, hey, we've got something. It's kind of cool. We can make it a little bit better with the time we have left. Let's get tricky, just a little tricky. I'm going to copy our Snow 3, Control D, and rename this. I didn't mean to double click, but that's okay. I'll rename it to Snow Mask. And let's change some things. Go back into our particle size. I'm going to take this to like 5. And we're going to change this up to birth rate up to 1. Let's see how this looks. Okay. Quite chaotic. But what I want to do is make a copy of this happy holidays. I'm going to move our snow mask up a little bit. And I want to use our letter as a matte. Let me turn this off. So now when this forms, you'll start to see some, I'm just using that bulk of the snow mask to reveal our happy holidays. And I could do this enough that it just filled the page and it would be fine. But I want it to kind of do a slow reveal, and then I'm just going to animate, once it gets pretty full, I'm going to animate our happy holidays transparency. If you hit T for transparency. I know it's opacity, it gets confusing, but it is T for transparency. I'm going to put a easy ease on that. Come in about a second or so, add another keyframe, go back to the first keyframe and zero that out. So now over time, it's going to fill in nicely. And then just to add a little bit of fun to this, we got something going on there. I think that looks pretty cool. You could add a drop shadow. In fact, I did for the mobile version of this. If you saw my story on Instagram, it kind of had a little bit of a drop shadow and some other stuff going on. If we have time, we'll talk about that. But I want to, let's see. This is one other thing I wanted to let you know. Okay, so we've made some snow. Yay, holiday snow. Awesome. If you wanted this to be it could be anything you wanted it to be. It doesn't have to be, it can be any image you want as the snowflake, obviously. If I just turn all of these off, let's go to Snow 1. I'm going to come over to our project, and this is a little sneak peek for next week. I have a Krampus. We might be doing something with Krampus next week. I'm going to pull this down in here, and I've got a little Krampus head, which if I double click, it's just a little icon. But you can then reference that. I'm going to go back to my Snow 1, go to my texture, click on my Krampus. Now I've got these Krampus heads floating in. I'll turn the Krampus layer off. And you also, here's the thing I wanted to point out too. You can see like they're cut off because of these discs. You can see the horns are cut off. But if you pre-compose this Krampus, and I'll double click to get into it. All you have to do now is Control K to get to your settings. Make the size of your layer bigger, giving you a little bit of area outside. And now our Krampus doesn't get cut off. And you have a bunch of little Krampus floating in. Another thing you could do with that, if you didn't want them being all twisty, you can change this to textured square, and they'll just kind of float down. And they'll stay, vertical, they'll stay aligned to the way you had it. But I don't want that. I'm going to undo all of that. Actually, I'm not going to undo. I'm just going to relink it to Snowflake 3. I believe that was where we were. Is that correct? That doesn't look right. Let's see if we can undo. Okay, there we go. But I wanted to show you that you could do that real quick. Not a big deal. Okay. We turned everything else off. That's fine. One other thing to note, and I just wanted to let you know that this is something that you can't do motion blur on this just by turning motion blur on. I'm gonna turn all these back on. Actually, I'm gonna leave those off for now, just so that you can see. The way you have to add motion blur is if you go into your effects and go to force, CC force motion blur. You can add a motion blur to it and then adjust the shutter angle and the samples if you'd like. And you can see if I turn this on, it is going to take a little bit longer to render. But on that frame, if I go back to a frame, let it render it out. And I just turn this off and on. That's a way to get motion blur on there if you want that on your particles. But let's talk about real quick. I know we only have about a minute. Here's the example I did earlier. Added a little vignette. That's the only difference we have in this one. But in this example number 2, it looks a little bit more lively, a little bit more animated. Well, it's not really. The only thing I did, it's the same thing. If I double click into this, you'll see it's the same exact thing. I added noise to it. I added a wiggle, which we've done in the past, a wiggle expression where it 15 times a second it moves 3 frames, so we get a little bit of wiggle going on. Let's see if I can get in here so you can see it. Let's see, there's some wiggle happening there. And then I did a little loop expression over a background. Well, I'll say background. It is a textured paper that I just rotate, and then on the keyframes, and I just rotated at random, just enough for on the keyframes, I did a hold keyframe so that it kind of chops up between it, and then that just loops. And then on the pre-composed example, I added a post-rise time, and that gives us this look right here. Okay, we got through it. Thanks, everybody. Val is up next, and we will see you in the next one. And yeah, take care. See you soon. Bye, everybody.